Ethnic Group Presentation, African American, by Brian Knapp, Sociology 201, Cornerstone University. Demographics. Number 1. African Americans comprise 12.6% of the population of the United States as of 2010. That, as a number, is 38,929,319 people. According to 1998 census data, only 5% of African Americans were foreign-born. Projections predict increasing immigration from sub-Saharan Africa, with previous immigration from Africa has primarily come from Nigeria, Ethiopia, Ghana, Kenya, and Morocco. Such diversity should warn providers against assuming the existence of a typical African American family. Family and cultural values. Number 1. Kinship bonds. Multi-generational with differing boundaries. Most African American families are embedded in complex kinship networks of blood and non-related individuals. Number 2. Role flexibility. Familial roles are often diverse due to historical oppression of the family unit. Role flexibility within the African American family, like extended kinship bonds, is highly adaptive for coping with the stresses of oppression and past socioeconomic ills. Number 3. Religion. Religion is an important factor in African American society, often a part of the social structure. Religion is an extremely important factor in the life of the African American community and provides a valuable source of social connection, as well as self-esteem and succor in times of stress. Interviewee: Veronique Thompson, PhD. Number 1. Veronique is a licensed clinical psychologist and professor at the Wright Institute. Number 2. Veronique personally identifies as an African American or Black woman. Number 3. Veronique has a strong sense of spirituality, which plays out in her everyday life and work. Number 4. Veronique is driven by her experience, both past and present, and is committed to work with her own people. The interview. Number 1. Description of ethnic background and its impact on your work. I identify as African American, and my racial identity impacts and shapes my life. Racism makes it impossible for me to forget about the color of my skin. Number 2. Definition of African Americans as a people group. The term African American refers to people of Black African descent. Number 3. What terms are used by African American communities to describe themselves? Most prefer Black or African American, depending on the area in which they were born and raised. Number 4. What historical experiences should providers take note of for their clients? I would divide our history into 4 segments. Number 1, pre-enslavement. Number 2, the Middle Passage. Number 3, enslavement. And number 4, post-enslavement. Number 5, factors that impact African Americans seeking treatment. Trust is the biggest factor. African Americans tend not to seek help from professionals. Number 6, typical problems brought for seeking treatment. All of the problems that other Americans typically have. Depression and anxiety are prevalent in the culture. Number 7, what subpopulations are at risk? Black men are underserved and at risk, as well as children born into poverty and the LGBT community. Number 8, suggestions for building a rapport with clients. Being direct, being authentic, and honesty are vital to the African American culture. Conclusion. Understand the cultural context of the family. There are 4 factors that point to experiences that have shaped African Americans and their culture. Number 1, African legacy. African legacy is rich in culture, customs, and achievements. Number 2, the history of slavery and deliberate attempt to destroy the core and soul of the people. Number 3, racism and discrimination and ongoing efforts to continue the psychological and economic subjugation started under slavery. Number 4, a victim system and process by which individuals and communities are denied access to the instruments of development and advancement. Also, view differences in family dynamics as adaptive mechanisms and strengths. And develop practices that take into account the needs, cultural dynamics, and style of the African American culture. References. The material used for this PowerPoint presentation was the book Cultural Diversity, a Primer for the Human Services, 5th edition, authored by Jerry V. Diller, written and copyrighted in 2015. Thank you.